Hello and welcome to this portfolio workshop. In today's tutorial, we are just going to be going through some initial tips and advice about how to approach building your portfolio, whether that be for MMU Foundation or whether that be for a degree course. We're going to go through some specifics about what to expect and how best to approach constructing your portfolio. It is something that the vast majority of you have not done yet. So we will be talking a little bit about interview prep as well within the workshop. But ultimately, this is just about putting those portfolios together that universities are requiring for your degrees as well as the MMU Foundation. Now, to start off with, universities will be very specific about what it is they're asking for and how you should present your portfolio of work. Now, this has changed quite drastically due to the pandemic. Before, the vast majority of students would be called to a face-to-face interview. So portfolios used to be sort of between A2 and A1 size. You'd take your sketchbooks. Obviously, the way that we have been working the past couple of years, we've had to adapt because of the pandemic. So read very carefully what the university would like from you. What we're seeing is this trend of the vast majority of unis are asking for websites or blogs. Some universities are asking for digital PDFs, and then there is the odd uni that uses a tool called Pebblepad, where you upload your portfolio to it. So we're going to break it down into these stages. Like I said, there are some interviews that are being conducted. The only one at the minute that I know is doing face-to-face interviews is Chester. So if it is that they've asked you for a face-to-face interview, please make sure that you come and talk to your teacher about that, just to prepare you for some of the questions that they may ask. Because remember, we have lots and lots of students that apply to universities and these courses year on year. We do have an idea of what certain universities are expecting. So talk to your teacher. If it is that you've got a face-to-face interview, just have a quick conversation with your tutor. So I suppose it's where to begin. It does seem quite daunting. What you will find is, as soon as you put your UCAS form in, you will get contacted pretty much straight away by the vast majority of the unis. Often the university courses give you around 2 to 3 weeks notice. Some of them may give you a little bit longer. But yeah, for a lot of you, even if it is that you've not necessarily been contacted by the uni yet, I would begin to put your portfolio together. So first things first, you need to make sure that you read their detailed description of what they're expecting. Each uni is different. So if you go to the A+D Portfolio section, we've got MMU portfolio criteria. So each university will have this. We're just using MMU as an example. So you see, this is all the criteria for each of their programs. So we'll just look at graphic design as an example. So you'll notice the first bit is usually very similar for all the studies, all the courses. But they will ask for specific things. So here, no more than 20 example pieces, so 20 images. Some universities have little videos as well that you can watch. So take the time, write lists down for what each university requires. Now, just a shout out to students who are applying for architecture. These courses are very specific. Again, I'm using Manchester as an example here, so the Manchester School of Architecture. So here, they're asking specifically for drawing. They're also asking for sort of the whole process and whole development of a project. So where the initial idea came from, and then working up to what the final design or final piece will be. Some universities in architecture go as far as to say, I know one centre asks for 10 observational drawings. a lot of the centres ask for model making, some centres ask for evidence of work experience. So architecture students, you need to start looking at this now, writing down exactly what it is they're asking you to do. And if it is that you've not done, for example, any model making, you need to make sure that you start doing that in your personal investigation now. So step one, this would be looking at the strongest projects that you've done over the past 2 years. Now, our advice would always be never to include GCSE work. That's always been something that a lot of centres have said, because a lot of you have definitely moved on from the quality of work that you were making at GCSE. So just look at the work that you've made over the past 2 years. Think about those strongest projects. For those of you that study more than one art subject, they will be looking for work from both of those areas. So for example, if you do photography and graphics, but you're applying for a graphics course, they will be expecting to see some photography. They don't just want to see graphic design work, they want to see you working in other areas as well, which could be photography, drawing, sculpture, filmmaking. They want to see your ability to develop an idea and whether you have any ideas, your ability to research. So think about projects. It could be that you look at starting at about 4 or 5 different projects that you've worked on this year, and then selecting the best images from them. So in photography, for example, it could be you'd like to include your object for a walk project because it was one of your most successful. You're all going to be including the personal investigation that you're working on now because they want to see what you're working on now. But for those students who do textiles or arts or have made any handmade work, make sure that you take that into the studio and photograph that properly with the lighting. If it is that you are doing a website, you might want to do some little video clips as well, so keep that in mind. But begin to create these files, start to drag in examples of work from that project. It can include photographs, it can include design work, it can include research as well. It can be your personal study, for example. It might be that they're interested in seeing that, your ability to analyse and research artists' work. So begin to put those pieces into folders, start to organise your strongest work. So I just wanted to show you students from last year. So if we look at the section for graphics, because this student did 3 art subjects, so this was the personal investigation she was working on. So you can see there we've got photograph, we've got research, we've got some initial architecture ideas and some branding. But what she did, Izzy, was put the link to her sketchbook as well. So they had an idea. If it is they wanted to look at some more images from that project, she almost linked her sketchbook to it. Because this was for MMU Foundation, so they are very specific. I think they don't ask for any more than 25 images. So she stuck to that, but at the same time, she put the link on there for her website, which acted as her sketchbook. So if it is that the individuals wanted or the uni wanted to look at some additional work from that project, it was available to them. So let's look at websites. The vast majority of you are going to be putting a website together. That's what we're finding a lot of unis are asking for, because they know a lot of people have had to adapt their practice over the past 2 years, and quite a lot of students are using websites as a way to document the projects that they're working on. So on the portfolio section of our website, you will notice that we have added some examples of this. So, my tip for this would be to keep it very well organised. You don't want it too fussy. You want it to be easily navigated, not too many clicks, as the UI and UX designers always say. But, allow them to easily explore your project. So Ethan's here, he had 6 projects that were available and they were very well organised. So when we look at Izzy's as well, look at the way that this website's been organised. So starting with that entry project, her work that she was doing with the collective, because they're interested in what you're doing as enrichment, and then the separate projects there. So you can see when you click on that, we've got some examples of work, but then she's added the link to her digital sketchbook, which in this case was a website. So again, if they want to view that additional work, they can do. You'll also notice that for each project, they have a little write-up. And that's basically talking about the initial ideas, talking about maybe artists and the research, what inspired them for this project. You've got to remember, back in the day when face-to-face interviews were conducted, you were able to talk through your projects. These universities, you're not going to be in the room whilst they look at the work. So, add a little bit of a snippet, it could just be 100, 200 words where you're just talking about the project and how it was developed and those initial starting points. But yeah, keep your website well organised. Now, for those of you that do art or textiles or have worked in sketchbooks at some point over these past 2 years, include photographs or little film clips of them. So like this is an example of a sketchbook, and we can easily set up the camera in the art department, so then you can go and film them like this so they can see the sketchbook. You can scan them in as well if you want to. But include any sketchbooks, include any handmade work, and make sure you photograph or film any final pieces. So like, for example, those of you that do textiles, document some of those garments and pieces that you've made. They'll want to see them. And another thing to add, universities, are interested in seeing your process. Even pieces that on the face of it you might think aren't very successful, maybe a little bit rough around the edges. They want to see that, especially MMU. MMU love to see your sketchbook work, sort of those initial drawing and initial sketches that you do. So make sure you include some of that, especially those of you that are doing the MMU Foundation entry project. Even if it's taking photographs of the process as well, include pieces like this. The way you order your projects is incredibly important on your website. My tutor told me, you've got to start with the best and you've got to end with the best. They're either going to make the decision in the first few minutes of looking at your website, or they're going to look all the way through your portfolio and make that decision at the end. So you want to leave them with some sort of lasting impression. So yeah, start with the best and end with the best. And they want to see a variety. They don't, for example, in graphics, they don't just want to see branding projects. They do want to see illustration if you've got it in your portfolio. They want to see that variety. They want to see if you've got ideas. That's what they're looking for. And, it is worth saying as well, you will find that you'll have to adapt your website for each unit, or you may have to, especially the architecture students. If that means you duplicating your portfolio website and adapting it and sending 2 or 3 links off, that is up to you. But don't feel like once you've made one portfolio, that's it. Make sure you tweak it depending on the course that you're applying for, because I know some of you have applied to one institute for different courses, so they may require different things. So keep that in mind. The next is PDFs. 1 or 2 unis are asking for PDFs. Again, often we would, especially for example in graphics and photography, we would often take a PDF with us to face-to-face interviews because the vast majority of our work is digital. But a PDF is slightly different in its approach, because you have to remember a PDF is designed primarily for print, though they are going to be viewing this digitally. Now we do have some examples of this available on the website, but for a PDF you will be designing pages. which will include some of the work, well, it will include the work that you've done over the past 2 years. So the same principles apply. You will maybe showcase 4 or 5 projects, but might have 2 or 3 pages for each of those projects. So my first advice would be, think about your personal branding. So here's some examples that I've snipped of some of the work that's on our website. Keep it simple. The first page is going to include your name, and also I would always include your UCAS number, because you never know, there might be 2 or 3 Isabel Birchalls that are applying for the same course, so make sure you include your UCAS number. But think about the branding, keep it simple. And then, as always, whenever you're designing anything for editorial or publication design, you start with a grid system. So this is a very basic grid of the example that I just showed you. So again, you'll have pieces from your project. This can include design, photographs, research. But then to the left-hand side, you will see them text boxes. That is where you put the title of your project and maybe, again, a little bit of narration about the project ideas and whether you found it successful or not. I'd always keep my brand on every page as well. Usually this was mainly because if for whatever reason you took it to a face-to-face interview, sometimes if one page fell away, they knew that it would be your work. I don't know, I always plan for the worst, mate. But yeah, apply that grid system then and repeat that throughout this PDF. Now, some of you might prefer doing a PDF, you might feel more confident when it comes to editorial design, that's fine. But you can see how that grid system has been applied to this layout, and you can see that it's just being adapted. PDFs tend to be around sort of about 20 to 30 pages long, and again, make sure there's a variety of work in there. Now, we do have some examples of PDFs online. You will notice that they're videos, they're YouTube clips. The main reason for that was because of the size. To download them was a bit of a nightmare. So you can have a watch of them, but these were originally PDFs that the students sent to their universities. So they're available on the website. Now, watch for the file size of your PDFs. Usually there is a limit that tends to be about 30 meg. What you might find is the PDF, especially if it's 20 pages to 30 pages long, it might end up being bigger than that. So if you go to the portfolio section of the website, you'll see that we've included some how-to videos. So, how you can make that introduction into InDesign. You can make this on pages if you want to, or if not, do look at InDesign. That's ideally what you should be making it on. It shows you there how to convert your PDF to JPEGs. It also shows you how to collate your file as one PDF. So for those of you that design things on Photoshop or Illustrator and don't use artboards, you can easily collate all those files into a single PDF using Adobe Acrobat. And then also there's a video on how you can reduce the PDF size and zip that down. So again, double check with your teacher if you're struggling. If you ask them, we can help you make sure that the file will get to the university, shall we say, in one piece. And then finally, Pebblepad. We know some universities are using this. Not as many as there were a few years ago, to be honest with you, but Pebblepad literally just allows you to upload one file, whether it be a JPEG, video, audio clip, and then for each file that you upload, it gives you an annotation feature. So then you can do your little write-ups per image. They tend to limit it to about 15 to 20, but that process can take you some time. So make sure that you've got all your images prepped beforehand, and you've got all your little narration or annotations written. Make sure you spell check them, because I don't think it spell checks in the piece of software. So make sure you spell check it, and then you can copy and paste it into Pebblepad. Now finally, for those of you that are doing the MMU entry project, so celebration, I know a lot of you have started to talk to your teachers about this anyway, but one thing that we are finding that we are a little bit concerned about is that a lot of you aren't reading the brief properly. So remember, the brief is available on the website. We've also linked it to our website as well. What's great about the MMU project is that they give you a lot of artist and suggested research. They also give you a methodology, so how they would like you to approach this project. So make sure that you follow those, just follow it. You'll notice that it's the same as the way that we would follow a project. But make sure that you tick all them things off that they're asking for. And remember, they're asking you to celebrate the mundane, okay? Or what would be considered the mundane. So please make sure that you read this project properly. Make sure you read the brief properly and speak to your teacher about some of the ideas that you have. Now, on the website, that material is available here. So this is the portfolio section, so you can look at some of the example portfolios that we have, as well as those how-to tutorial videos. If you want to see the MMU foundation material, if you go to A+D Excellence, click on careers, and then down at the bottom here's the art foundation material, so click on that, and then it has the entry projects and everything on there for you as well. We also include the Blackburn and UAL work, if it is that you want to have a look at that. There are examples as well of the MMU Art Foundation website portfolios that 2 successful students got in with last year, so have a look at them. And also there is Sage's successful UAL portfolio website that you can look at as well. Now, please make sure that you speak to your teacher. We've been doing this a very long time now. We know what universities are looking for. Please don't send portfolios off without showing your teacher, okay? Again, sit down, have a chat through it. Don't leave it to the last minute. There's nothing more stressful than leaving it to the 11th hour. So speak to your teacher about it, and hopefully you found this workshop helpful. Again, any questions, feel free to come and speak to us.